Brian Flores took a different approach than many of us have seen before. Very reminiscent of Roger Staubach.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler.
So that's why I have the Mavs winning in 7, and then Luka's just going to be Luka.
Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Kaprizov and the rest of this crew. Jordan Greenway, who doesn't get enough props. He definitely is somebody who needs to be mentioned more. I definitely think this is going to be a great series, and I'm interested to see how much Kaprizov can impact the game as a rookie.
Yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Is the Avalanche versus the Blues. I believe the Blues are starting to play some of their best hockey all year, and so they can push this to 6 games.
If Leiter's there, I'm happy with Leiter because I think he fits into what you were saying about a much quicker thing. But if Leiter's not there, which is seeming so, I say Jordan Lawler at number 2.
The same self. The only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
there will be a Rodgers playing for Green Bay, even though he may not be the quarterback. But it's still unknown there. Austin is giving me the dead stare, so I guess don't mention Aaron Rodgers to him right now.
A top 3 corner in the league in Jair Alexander, and pairing him with a really fast corner should definitely assist in their ability to guard anybody in their division and anybody in the league.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week for November 14th. Today, we're going to be talking about NBA trades that backfired. So we're going in chronological order. We start with June 22nd, 2017. Jimmy Butler's traded by the Chicago Bulls with Justin Patton to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and Lauri Markkanen. So this trade backfired for the Timberwolves, as there is the memorable scene where Jimmy Butler went with the bench players and beat the starters and was traded to the 76ers a year and a half later after this trade. And we've seen how Zach LaVine has just become one of the stars on the Bulls. And then you include Markkanen, and then now Chris Dunn is on the Hawks. But the main thing is Zach LaVine. What are your thoughts on this trade, Austin?
Yeah, this obviously did not work for the Timberwolves, even though they did reach a playoff appearance during Jimmy Butler's tenure. They got gentlemen swept by the Houston Rockets that year with Tom Thibodeau as their head coach. Tom Thibodeau is not a head coach, obviously, of the Knicks. But yeah, this definitely did not work. While Chris Dunn and Lauri Markkanen are now on either different teams, with Lauri Markkanen on the Cavs and Chris Dunn, now he's a free agent. But Zach LaVine's really the story here. Jimmy Butler was gotten rid of by Minnesota, and in that trade they got guys like Robert Covington and other guys who aren't on the team currently, and they lost Zach LaVine, who's turning into a star and right in front of our eyes in Chicago, being a very effective player on a very good team now.
Yeah, so that's why we believe it's backfired. Now we go to July 6, 2017. Paul George is traded by the Indiana Pacers to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. Of course, Oladipo is not on the Pacers, but Sabonis is, and just even if it's just Sabonis, I think it still backfires for OKC. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, at least in the short term. If we're talking about this trade, they did not get what they wanted out of Paul George, but in the end game, they got all those picks from the Clippers for Paul George later on. So while they didn't win the Pacers trade because they got rid of Victor Oladipo, who became a star with the Pacers until he got hurt, and Domantas, who is blossoming into a very good player, they did end up getting Paul George for giving away Paul George for a ton of first round picks. So while this trade definitely backfired for OKC, I wouldn't say Paul George did, because they're going to get a lot of players in the future, and if they use those picks right, they definitely would have won that Paul George trade.
Yeah, and that one is not on here because we don't know how those picks have turned out. And to your point, you do make a great point with that. The Sam Presti did a good job rebounding from this bad trade as giving up Sabonis and Oladipo for Paul George, who didn't do much, but Presti made a good trade out of it. Now we go to August 30th, 2017. Kyrie Irving is traded by the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Celtics for Jay Crowder, Isaiah Thomas, Ante Zizic, a 2018 first round pick, which turns into Colin Sexton, and a 2020 second round draft pick, Skylar Mays. And we know how Kyrie went with the Celtics, and now he is on the Nets. So this backfires on the Celtics. And what saves this from being backfiring on the Cavs is Colin Sexton, because Thomas didn't make it through the season with the Cavs, um, because they traded him, and then Crowder is now on the Suns. So, but Colin Sexton was that pick, so it turns out well for the Cavs, but not for the Celtics.
Yeah, and I mean Colin Sexton's now out for the season, which is a sad thing to happen. But I still believe his future with the Cavs is going to be a fruitful one. And we all know how the Irving tenure in Boston turned out. A lot of controversy. A lot of the planet is flat and all this stuff. And he seemed like he was more interesting off the court than he was on the court. They could not really win many series, and they never really had a deep playoff run, despite the fact that one run they had in 17-18 while Kyrie had played that season in Boston and was hurt for the playoffs. That was the farthest they ever made. They ever made it while he was on the team, and he wasn't even on the court. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about the Boston tenure of Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, they seem to play better with Kyrie out with an injury or something like that. So that just goes to show really it was like the worst outcome. Now we go to September 25th, 2017. A lot of these are from 2017 because we've seen what has come from like the picks traded and the players drafted. And Carmelo Anthony was traded by the New York Knicks to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and a 2018 second round draft pick, which turned into Mitchell Robinson. And this is the quote unquote big three with the Thunder with Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. That doesn't really turn out well, so it really backfires on the Thunder, but it saved the Knicks get some good players in the short run, then long term, as we're seeing Mitchell Robinson, who's a great defensive center, but he still struggles with health.
Yeah. And this is another instance where Sam Presti kind of saves himself because later on he trades Carmelo and gets some stuff back and saves cap space. He gets Dennis Schroeder, and then uh, Dennis Schroeder leaves for the Lakers, and now he's on Boston. But yeah,
Well, Presti flipped Schroeder
yeah,
to the Lakers.
yeah. And it really has been an impressive showing for Presti. It seems like not like he'll have a bad trade and then we'll recover it. And he's now accumulating so many picks that it's really impressive to watch. I I'm not very I don't know how the Knicks are going to do with this trade long term. Mitchell Robinson is very very good, and right now the OKC's definitely lost the trade because of how Carmelo performed for the team. But if Mitchell Robinson can just remain healthy and be the player he looks out to be in the future, I'm excited for what's to come with the Knicks.
Yeah, that's very true. And with the Sam Presti flipping Schroeder, well, getting Anthony and then flipping Schroeder, it just added more to his chest of his low treasure chest. So that'll be something interesting. And in the Paul George trade, he got those picks and Shy Gilgeous Alexander, who's turned out to be a very good player.
That was
In
the Paul George
addition,
trade.
yeah, that's the Paul George trade. So you could pinpoint who got traded and then what kept rolling down. It's almost like the Paul Pierce and
Or
Ray
Paul
Allen
Pearson.
to the
No,
Nets.
no
Or it was
Garnett.
just it was Kevin
No, it was
Garnett.
Pearson
Okay,
Garnett. Yeah,
okay, gotcha. Yeah, Allen
and Jason
left,
Terry technically.
and Jason Terry.
Yeah.
So that it's very similar to what we saw with the Celtics, but I think to an even greater extent with the Thunder, as those picks ran out with the Nets, and they really haven't been able to capitalize on those, as they have the farthest they've gone was in 2017. But now we can move on to one that's pretty recent, and it gets a little close to me, and that is November 18th, 2020. Seth Curry traded by the Dallas Mavericks to the Philadelphia 76ers for Tyler Bay and Josh Richardson. Both of those players are no longer on the Mavericks, and Seth Curry is just shooting, and having a great three-point shooter on this Mavs team would really help the offense. At the time, it seemed like, okay, we're trying to do defense, but this is probably one of the trades that led to Donnie Nelson getting fired, including the shadow GM stuff and just him not getting along with Mark Cuban anymore.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen that the Mavs have historically not been the greatest with trades, even though they did pick up Tyson Chandler, which helped them lead to a championship. They also got Caron Butler in that trade, who obviously did not play in the finals, but was a big part of that team that entire season. The Mavs definitely messed up here because Richardson isn't even on the team anymore, and they didn't even get any competition for him. He just left. He was just gone. And then
No, we flipped Josh Richardson for Moses Brown.
oh, that's right. But you guys don't
But
even
we
play
don't
Moses
play
Brown.
Moses Brown.
Yeah, it was basically nothing. You guys traded him for literally nothing. It was nothing.
Yes, it's true.
And then Tyler Bay, you guys don't even have on your team anymore. And then, not to mention that Philly also gained a trade exception from Dallas. They took a trade exception. So it just seemed like Dallas got nothing in this trade that benefited them at all. And Philly got their second best player now because Ben Simmons isn't playing and Tobias isn't 100%.
Yeah, Seth Curry is a great three-point shooter, and it would really help a Mavericks team. There are many problems with this Mavericks team, but I think having a great three-point shooter like Curry would help, especially when you have Luka who can just give him wide open shots. But it was a bad trade, and that's why it backfired. So that ends our backfiring trades. Let us know if you want us to talk more about trades that backfired. We definitely will revisit some in a few years, like what we were talking about with Paul George being traded to the Clippers and all whatever comes out from that mess. So that concludes our NBA opinions for this week. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments, and thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.